Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. Tonight's movie is 1940's The Human Monster, directed by Walter Summers. The first time I saw this film was on the Channel 23 all-night movies, and the thing that struck me about it was the malevolent nature of the violence in it. This movie is, for its time anyway, pretty brutal. It's so brutal, in fact, that it was the first movie in England to earn an H for horrific certificate by the British censors. The plot of the film involves murder-for-profit insurance fraud, which doesn't sound too promising, but it does make for a compelling movie. The Human Monster, also known as The Dark Eyes of London, is based on a story by Edgar Wallace, who was, for lack of a better comparison, the Stephen King of his time. This is not to say that I don't like Stephen King, quite the contrary. I own first edition hardcovers of most of his books, and up to and including The Dead Zone, they're signed by the author. What I meant by that is that Edgar Wallace cranked out books during his career. I mean, cranked them out. He felt he didn't write very well, so he decided quantity would make up for quality and wrote more than 170 novels, stage plays, and short stories. His stories usually focused on crime, and that crime was invariably murder. His villains would murder victims in the most horrific ways possible and always disguise themselves behind a mask of respectability, as they murdered indiscriminately to gain money or power. God only knows how many movies were made from his stories. The English and the Germans just about worshipped the ground the guy walked on and made movies out of nearly everything he wrote. His name was always prominently featured on the movie posters, and he was a guaranteed draw, so the studios cranked out the movies at an alarming rate. Edgar Wallace stories were also favorites of the Poverty Row studio, since the rights could be acquired for a song. Now, before I go on, let me tell you a true story. This is marginally related to tonight's film, so, you know, there is something to be had from it. This is about a guy that became to be known as Indestructible Mike Malloy. Mike Malloy was a 60-year-old unemployed fireman in 1930s New York City. An alcoholic, he one day wandered into a bar owned by a small-time crook named Tony Marino. Malloy was a good customer. He worked part-time as a janitor to finance his drinking habit, but soon ran up quite a tab at Marino's joint, a tab he had no hope of paying. Marino cut him off, but Malloy kept coming back and sponging drinks off the other customers. Times were bad, and Marino needed money. He was bemoaning his fate to another regular customer, an undertaker by the name of Francis Pasqua, and Pasqua offered up the perfect solution to his problem: take out an insurance policy on Malloy and murder him. Marino agreed instantly. He'd done it before, after all, and it would work that time, so why not do it again? These two and a few other crooked bar patrons chipped in together and bought 3 life insurance policies on Malloy that had double indemnity clauses. If Malloy died an accidental death, the policies would pay double the value. The guys figured it would be an easy thing to kill Malloy, since he was an old man and in terrible shape. They figured the easiest, cheapest way would be to let the old sot drink himself to death. They figured wrong. Marino gave Malloy unlimited credit at his bar, and Mike would walk happily in every morning when the joint opened and pound drinks down until the place closed at night. This went on for about 2 or 3 weeks, and the murder trust, as they were dubbed later by the tabloids, began to get a little impatient. They'd spent a considerable amount of money on the insurance policies, and Malloy was drinking so much that the bar was on the verge of going under. So they decided the time had come to speed things up a bit by spiking Malloy's drinks with antifreeze. He drank gallons of this stuff and complimented Marino on his mixology skills, commenting that he'd never had drinks with such a unique taste before. Seeing that the antifreeze didn't do the trick, they tried adding horse liniment, turpentine, and rat poison to the alcohol. That didn't work either. In fact, Malloy drank more than ever. Pasqua remembered burying a man that allegedly died from eating raw oysters and whiskey, so they decided to try food poisoning next. When Malloy came in the next day, they served him tainted oysters marinated in wood alcohol, and he ate several helpings. He staggered out of the place that night, and the guys congratulated themselves on an idea that was sure to work. They were a bit dismayed when he swaggered in the next day and asked if they had any more of that great seafood they'd served him the other night. The gang began to get desperate now, so they came up with another plan that was sure to work. They opened a can of sardines, let it sit for a week, and then made a sandwich for their steadiest customer out of the spoiled fish, adding a few other things to the recipe, like the ground-up can the sardines came in and a number of shredded pins. Malloy downed the sandwich with gratitude and came back the next day for more. They then gave Malloy drinks until he passed out, loaded him into a car owned by one of the conspirators, drove him out to Claremont Park, dumped him in a snowbank, tore open his shirt, dumped a bucket of ice water on his bare chest, and left him out in the 14-degree weather. The next day, Malloy walked into the bar wearing a new suit and complaining that he caught a chill the other night. It turned out he'd been found by a Salvation Army worker and given a new set of clothes. They next hired a hitman named Anthony Tough Tony Bastone to kill Malloy. Bastone came up with what seemed like a foolproof scheme. They got Malloy drunk again, and two of the schemers held him in a standing position in the middle of a deserted street as Bastone, in a borrowed cab, got the auto up to about 50 miles an hour and hit Malloy as the other two dashed out of the way. They searched the obits the next day for the news of his demise, but they got nothing except a visit from the irate cab driver demanding that they pay for the damage done to his car. Weeks went by and they heard nothing. No body, no payoff. Then, one day, Malloy walked into the bar again, laughing that he'd fallen into the street and somehow got hit by a car, suffering a brain concussion and a fractured shoulder. The reason his friends had been unable to find him was because the hospital had never bothered to register him. At this point, the guys decided to take the direct approach. They gave Malloy wood alcohol to drink until he passed out, took him to one of the conspirators' apartments, threw him on the bed, and hooked up a hose to the gas pipe, which they then shoved down his throat. This time, Malloy died. Police investigating the murder soon uncovered the convoluted plot, and all the participants were arrested, with three of them, including Marino, going to the chair. The reason I told you that story is that when you know the tale of indestructible Mike Malloy, the plot of this movie becomes a lot easier to go with. Bela Lugosi was born to Bela Ferenc Dezo Blasco on October 20th, 1882 in Lugos, Hungary. In the early 1900s, he joined a theatrical company and eventually became their top-billed star, and after a while moved on to film acting, appearing in 27 films in Europe. After the First World War, he immigrated to the United States and appeared in his first American film, 1923's The Silent Command. In 1929, he took the title role in the stage play Dracula. It ran on Broadway for 33 weeks and then toured the West Coast. When Universal first bought the rights, they intended the role for Lon Chaney Sr., but when he died of throat cancer, the part was eventually offered to Lugosi. It made him famous, but it also typecast him as a horror star for the rest of his life. Of course, just about every woman that saw him in that film fell in love with him. Vampires are sexy, as any fan of the Buffy series can tell you. He once said that the paycheck was the most important thing to him, which explains some of the movies he did. His lack of pickiness in scripts led him to working at the Poverty Row Studios in the late 30s and 40s. In the 50s, he met the infamous writer, producer, director, actor Edward D. Wood, Jr., and they began a relationship that lasted until Lugosi's death in the mid-50s. His first film with Wood was also Wood's first film, the semi-autobiographical Glen or Glenda in 1953. He then took a starring role in Wood's next movie, 1955's Bride of the Monster, and was going to star in a movie Wood was tailor-making for him to be called The Ghoul Goes West. They had only shot a few scenes of Bela standing at a graveside and walking around outside of his house when Lugosi died of a heart attack on August 16th, 1956 in Hollywood, California. Wood ended up taking the footage he shot with Bela and fashioned a movie around it, calling it Plan 9 from Outer Space. Incidentally, if you've seen Tim Burton's 1994 film Ed Wood, while Martin Landau's performance was worth the Oscar he won, it's inaccurate. Lugosi and Karloff were casual friends in real life, and in addition, Lugosi was a true gentleman and would never have used profanity in public, much less on a movie set. Wilfred Walter was born on March 2, 1882 in Ripon, North Yorkshire, England. He began his career in theater as a set designer and served a 4-year stint in the service during World War I. When he returned, he was hired as a designer for the Old Vic Theater, and there made his stage debut in 1919, soon playing major roles in various Shakespearean plays, including Mark Antony, Falstaff, Bottom, and Titus Andronicus. He appeared in 16 films, starting with 1935's Old Roses. His last film was 1953's Clue of the Missing Ape. He died on July 9, 1958 in Ashtead, Surrey, England. The Human Monster is a unique film in that it allows Lugosi to stretch a bit as an actor, an opportunity not given to him often enough. He was great in 1939's Ninotchka, and while he played Rockstar, the villain in 1932's Shandu the Magician, he played against type in the title role in 1934's The Return of Shandu. He made a great hero in that movie, and I would have liked to see him play more of those roles. Unfortunately, by the early 40s, he was considered washed up by Hollywood and completely ignored in the 50s until his fateful meeting with Ed Wood. He was a wreck of a man by then, addicted to morphine due to treatment for the injuries he received during World War I, which caused him to suffer from extreme sciatica. He became just one of the millions of people who were chewed up and spit out by Hollywood over the years, and it's unfortunate that he's thought of nothing more than a junkie who died in relative obscurity. I get asked sometimes what it's like being on TV, and it's really no big deal, to tell you the truth. I can't understand the mania that possesses people to be on television. Some people seem to believe that for some reason appearing on TV will make their lives worth living. At least I think they do. That's the only reason I can think of for appearing on shows like Jerry Springer. But don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing this. And it's always a compliment to be recognized by viewers and be told that they enjoy the show, but on the other hand, it occurs to you that you can't be who you really are all the time. I mean, let's face it, I can be a jerk sometimes, just like anybody else. You know, sometimes I can be in a foul mood when I'm out in public, and sarcasm is one of the facets in the diamond that is my personality. But the more I get recognized, the more the thought occurs to me that maybe I should be nice all the time, because I don't want anyone who watches the show to stop watching it because I was a jerk around them. See, the thing of it is, if you see someone on the street acting like a jerk, you think, wow, what a jerk, and then, you go on with your life, never giving it a second thought. However, if you see someone that puts themselves in the public eye on a regular basis acting like a jerk, you never forget it. If someone sees me on a bad day and later somebody says to them, have you ever seen Cleveland Classic Cinema? Your answer is going to be, yeah, I met that guy once. He's a real dick. That doesn't even take in the fact that I'd like people to think that I'm a nice guy, but the fact is, I am who I am. It's just impossible to be on my best behavior all the time. And believe me when I say that if I was, I'd be the dullest person you ever met. I'm usually pretty easygoing, so, if you see me on the street or at the mall or something like that and I look like I'm in a mood, don't be afraid to walk up and say hello. I'm not one of those people who walks around with a smile on their face 24/7. And because of that and my, physical size, I can be a little intimidating. But please believe me when I say that I'm always, always happy to meet a viewer. You guys are one of the reasons I do this, and I truly value each and every one of you. Just don't ask to borrow any money. So right now it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy The Human Monster right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.